Hi, and welcome back to Shadow Seekers. And welcome back to another deep dive into the unexplained. Today we are diving deep into one of the most famous and terrifying legends in Latin America, La Llorona. She walks the riverbanks at night, searching, crying. Her voice echoes through the darkness, a chilling wail that pierces the soul. They call her La Llorona. La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman, is one of the most famous and terrifying legends in Latin America. Her story has been passed down for generations, a cautionary tale whispered to children to keep them from wandering alone at night. But what if the legend is more than just a story? The most well-known version of the legend tells of a beautiful woman named Maria. She fell in love with a wealthy man and had children. But when he abandoned her for another, jealousy consumed her. In a fit of rage and despair, she drowned her children in a river, only to realize too late the horror of what she had done. Overcome with grief, she threw herself into the same waters. But the afterlife would not bring her peace. Now she is cursed to wander the world, searching for her lost children, wailing in sorrow. They say if you hear her cry, you must run. If her voice is near, she is far, but if it sounds distant, she is right behind you. A man named Carlos was driving home late one night near a river in Mexico. He had heard the legend of La Llorona growing up, but he never believed in it. That night, however, he changed his mind. As he drove along the dark, empty road, he noticed a woman dressed in white walking near the riverbank. She appeared lost, and her long black hair was covering her face. Thinking she needed help, Carlos slowed down and called out to her. But the moment she lifted her head, his blood ran cold. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale, and her mouth twisted in sorrow. Then, she let out a chilling scream.
¡Ay, mis hijos!
Carlos felt an overwhelming sense of dread as his car suddenly shut off. He frantically tried to start it again, but it wouldn't turn on. Then, the woman vanished into thin air. A moment later, the car roared back to life. Carlos sped away, and he promised never to doubt the legend again. Maria grew up hearing stories of La Llorona from her grandmother. One night when she was 7 years old, she woke up to the sound of weeping outside her bedroom window. She lived near a small creek, and the sobs seemed to be coming from the water. She pulled the blankets over her head. Her mother heard the cries too. She rushed into the room and whispered, "Don't move, and do not answer." Maria lay frozen as the wailing grew louder, then softer, then loud again, just as the legend says, if it sounds far, she is near. If it sounds near, she is far. Suddenly the bedroom window burst open, but there was no wind. Maria's mother began praying, and just like that, the crying stopped. The next morning, they found wet footprints beneath the window, leading back toward the creek. Maria still remembers that night vividly, and she swears to this day that La Llorona came looking for her. A group of teenagers were camping when they decided to test the legend of La Llorona. Around midnight, as they sat around the fire, they heard a crying sound in the distance. The wind suddenly picked up, and the wind extinguished the flames. They saw something move near the water that looked like a woman in a white dress standing in the shallows. At first, she stood still, but then she began gliding toward them, her dress floating above the water. Her face was covered, but they could see her mouth moving as she whispered something. They ran toward their tents, but one of them tripped. When he looked up, she was standing right over him. When he tried to get up on his feet, the woman had already disappeared. The next morning, they packed up and left. As they drove away, they saw a wet handprint was pressed against the glass in the back window. Throughout history, many have claimed to see La Llorona, a ghostly woman dressed in white, roaming near lakes and rivers. Some say she appears to children, calling them towards the water. Others believe she is a harbinger of death. If you see her, tragedy will soon follow. In Mexico and around the world, people still tell stories of her sightings. Is she a spirit that is trapped in sorrow? A demon luring the innocent to their doom? Or is La Llorona just an old folktale meant to scare children? What do you believe? Have you ever heard the cry of La Llorona? Let me know in the comments below. And if you love exploring mysteries and conspiracy theories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the unknown. If you hear a weeping woman in the night, whatever you do, don't look back.